It's 11 o'clock. Thank you. I'd like to start the meeting. Thank you very much, Jeff. It's a friendly committee here, just so you know. You'll have a lot of time to talk with staff after, but thank you very much for coming out this morning. Good morning, everyone. Our first meeting of Iraq Agricultural Rural Affairs Committee, February 24, here at Ben Franklin in person. So nice to see so many of you this morning. So I'm really excited for that. I would like to begin by acknowledging that this meeting is being held on unceded Anishinaabe-Algonquin territory. The peoples of the Anishinaabe-Algonquin Nation have lived on this territory for millennia. Their culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. We will now do a roll call, if you don't mind, Kelly, please.
Councillor Brown,
Here.
Councillor Kitts,
Here.
Councillor Luloff,
Present.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Present.
Councillor Leeper,
Here.
and Chair Durs, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I wanted to take a moment to provide some opening remarks for the first meeting of Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee. First, I would like to introduce and welcome Vice Chair Councillor Clark Kelly to Iraq. I also would like to welcome back to Iraq for her second term, my colleague and my neighbor, Councillor Catherine Kitt. As well, a new member of the committee, Councillor Luloff, but he's not a new councillor, by the way. Thank you very much. And also my neighbor, Councillor from Rideau Colburn, Councillor David Brown. And also like to welcome Chair of Planning Committee, Councillor Leeper. He's also ex officio on Iraq, and thank you very much, all of you, for being here this morning. As a member for the past 8 years, I know firsthand that the work that we do here is extremely important in protecting and preserving our communities and rural lifestyles. I look forward to our collaboration efforts to achieve this goal during this term. I also would like to highlight that we will also be continuing to have an open mic tradition at the end of each meeting. This will allow our residents to speak on issues that are brought up and during the meetings or items they would love to share or showcase with our committees. Our rural residents would love those to continue, and we listened to them and we heard them, and we will continue this tradition. With that being said, I'd like to proceed with the agenda for this term and our first term for today. Chair statement for public hearing for OP and zoning items. This is a public meeting to consider the proposed comprehensive official plan and zoning bylaw amendment listed as item 6.2 to 6.5 on today's agenda. For the item just mentioned, only those who make oral submissions today or written submissions before the amendments are adopted may appeal the matter to the Ontario Land Tribunal. In addition, the applicant may appeal the matter to Ontario Land Tribunal if Council does not adopt an amendment within 90 days of the receipt of the application for zoning bylaw amendment and 120 days for an official plan amendment. To submit written comments on these amendments prior to their consideration by City Council, March 8, 2023, please email or call the committee or council coordinator. Thank you. Number 2 on the agenda. No declaration. Can we see if we have a declaration of interest? Seeing none. Number 3 is confirmation of minutes. We have minutes 3.1 and 3.2 are the minutes of the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee's meetings of Thursday, September 29 and November 3rd, 2022 confirmed.
Confirmed.
Thank you. 4.1, we have 2023 draft budget, operating and capital budget, Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee. Staff are here and they have a presentation on the will of the committee, and we have no delegation for that. And we have the vice chair is ready for a roadmap. Do you want to see the presentation or you want to skip the presentation?
I don't think we need a chair.
Okay, since we're, sorry about, thank you, sir, for coming. It's very exciting budget, but thank you very much for showing up, sir. I know you're here, but so if we have no presentation, can I ask Vice Chair Kelly to read the roadmap and one motion, please?
Sorry, Chair, I was
Don't worry.
listening. I wasn't asleep.
It's the first time.
So that the Agricultural and Rural Affairs Committee recommend that council, sitting as committee of the whole, approve the Agricultural and Rural Affairs Committee 2023 draft operating and capital budget as follows. Number 1, development review process, operating resource requirement. Number 2, Rural Affairs Office as follows. User fees, operating resource requirement. Number 3, the Agricultural and Rural Affairs Committee capital program, individual projects listed.
Thank you.
That's it.
That's it.
Thank you, Chair.
Right. Is the road motion carried?
Carried.
Can we also carry the budget as amended?
Carried.
Thank you. That was easy. We spent all the money. Five, we have actually 5.1 is Agricultural Affairs Committee terms and reference. I think we have a delegation and we have a motion, so we'll hold this item. 6.2. Sorry, 6.1. We have official plan 2023 implementation. And we have no delegation and no correspondence. However, we have a staff presentation if you want to see it, or we can carry it. So
I think we're fine, Chair.
perfect. The Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommends City Council receive the report for information. Can we carry that? Receive it?
Received.
Okay, that's carried and received. Thank you. 6.2, we're gonna hold that. I think Carol's here and she has a small presentation for us. We're gonna come back to it. 6.3, we have a zoning bylaw amendment 2170 and 2180, Ottawa Road 29. We have received no delegation and no correspondence. Do any of the members wish to hold this item, or we can just carry it?
Carried.
Carried, thank you. That the Agricultural Affairs Committee recommend council approve an amendment, the zoning bylaw 2008-250 for part of 2170 Ottawa Road 29 as shown in document 1 to prohibit residential development on retained farmland as detailed in document 2. Thank you. 6.4 zoning bylaw amendment, part of 3016 Upper Dwyer Hill. It's another surplus farm, I guess. We have received no delegation and no correspondence. Do you want to hold this item or we can carry it? That the Agricultural Rural Affairs Committee recommend council approve the amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 for part of 316 Upper Dwyer Hill Road as shown in document 1 to rezone these land from AG2 to AG6 in order to prohibit residential development as detailed in document 2. Great, thank you. Now moving forward here. 6.5, zoning bylaw amendment 1185 Beaverwood Road. We have received no delegation. We have no correspondence, but also we have the owner on, and unless if there is any question or comment from the committee, do you want me to hold it or we can, you wanna?
No, I don't need to hold a chair. Thank you.
The applicant are online, and if I don't think we have to, if we carry this item, you don't have to speak. Am I correct on that?
Mr. Chair, Murray Chown, that would be absolutely correct. We would be pleased if the committee was to carry this report on consent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary, this morning, and that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommended council approve an amendment to zoning bylaw 2008-250 for 1185 Beaverwood Road as shown in document 1 to rezone the property from village first density residential subzone P V1P to village third density residential subzone 1 with a rural exemption V3 to permit a 3-story apartment building and modify the performance standards as detailed in document 2. Is that carried?
Carried.
Thank you. So
Thank you
the-
very much.
Thank you very much for your time. So we're gonna go back to, we hold item 6.2. Oh, sorry. 5.1. 5.1, the terms of reference and we have a delegation and yeah, Roddy and Mr. French, do you wanna join us here? And you know the rules. I'm sure you've been here once or twice. We're gonna give you a full 5 minutes. We're making an exemption.
Good morning, Chair, members of
Good morning.
committee. My name is Wayne French and I chair the Carp Road Corridor BIA. And with me this morning is Roddy Balabar, who is the executive director. I want to thank you for your for allowing us the time to do a presentation. I thought that if you weren't going to be discussing the budget, there's going to be no presentation on the budget, that we could take their time also, but I see we have 5 minutes. We'll look at that for that. Just want to point out that on your terms of reference, Article 11 or point 11 makes recommendation to council on matters relating to rural BIAs as a means to support and promote economic development in the rural areas. We want to work with your committee, with the city on this, because that is what we've been doing for the last number of years, is developing economic development in the Carp Road corridor area. We are one of 19 BIAs, and the business community responds to the Carp Road BIA, and it was established in 2011. And prior to that, we had an association that operated for many years. Today, over 225 businesses and over 3,600 employees work in the and establish their businesses in the Carp Road corridor. We have spent every year approximately $125,000. Members have spent on economic development, and it is progressing, but there's a lot of work to be done. And I'll turn the presentation over to Roddy, who will continue on with the presentation, and because he's had firsthand knowledge and work with us. He's been with the BIA for how many years? 2011. Since 2011, and he was with the association prior to that. So, Roddy, over to you. Thanks.
Oh, thanks very much, Wayne. I'll introduce you to the BIA, starting with the next slide, and point out where we are. So as one of the slides earlier mentioned, the Cheshire Cat Pub, put your hands up if you know the pub. I was in St. John's, Newfoundland once, presenting on light industry development in general, and somebody came up and said, "Were you talking about the Cheshire Cat Pub in St. John's, Newfoundland?" But the other landmark that you can see on the map is we're just past the CTC Center, so that hopefully orients everybody to where we are. From an economic development point of view, the corridor has 20% of all of Ottawa's vacant employment land. What an incredible resource. And 50% of all the vacant employment land in rural Ottawa. And we have an airport. What a unique resource for an economic development area. So if I can have the next slide. Earlier, Wayne mentioned, the terms of reference of the committee talking about economic development. Economic development is many things. In our area, it's attracting business. It's getting development approvals. It's transit. Many of our employees, as you're aware, across Ottawa are having trouble getting employees and getting them to work. It's reliability of hydro. It's many things. Economic development is many things. It's transportation. It's the capacity of the 400 interchange there for logistics to come and go. It's so broad. And our members tell us about that every day. The different ideas they have to improve their business opportunity in the corridor, to grow their business. But since inception, one of the main things that people are bringing forward to us is the idea of municipal water in the corridor. In 2004, the city permitted the airport in our business area to connect to the Carp Village water supply. The city's official plan, and previous to that, the regional official plan had a policy that said, for economic development, we'll bring some pipes out into rural. We don't want to bring pipes everywhere, but if it's a good economic development opportunity, for instance, the Carp Airport, there's been many similar approvals in the past. So our members have advocated for extension of municipal water. We look at your terms of reference. There are some policies on servicing, and we've appreciated the councillor's discussion on that. I've dealt in the past about village rural servicing and different opportunities to bring servicing for stay-in-place retirement and support businesses. So, but we did do an economic development study, and it did confirm that servicing would improve the economic development opportunity in the business area. And next slide, please. Certainly other issues which we mentioned, the city worked hard for us. Steve Gauthier worked hard back in 2014. Forming in 2011, members were coming forward to us and saying, I've got somebody who wanted to buy my property, but they're not allowed to do what they want to do. And it was weird how the zoning didn't align up with the market forces. And so a big study there and changed and helped. Back in 2016, the city did an EA for 4-laning of Carp Road from 417 into Stittsville, and that project is in the Transportation Committee design budget. So transportation equals economic development. Innovative ways to manage septics. Most of our areas on well and septic, but with the help of the Rural Affairs Office and some of city staff, the city has approved a septic design guideline, which is only applicable in the corridor. And it responds a little bit to the uniqueness of light industry, which is different from residential when it comes to wastewater. So we appreciate the help the city provided back in 2016 on that. And then we worked hard on the official plan, and the corridor is named as a special economic zone, or sorry, an economic zone, not a special one. That's Canada North in the airport. But previously in the official plan, the Carp Road corridor actually had its own section. So the Carp Road corridor, since amalgamation, has been important to the city as an economic development resource. Next slide, please. But we have lots of work to do. And Wayne mentioned we're ready and willing to work with you, city staff, our members, the water in the corridor. We intend to proceed with a local improvement petition in part of our area coming up soon, and also partner with the Village BI. We're meeting with their executive next week. The village nearby has concerns about water supply there. Traffic and transit, we've discussed that. OC Transpo came out to our area many years ago. We're going to renew that activity. And also I mentioned road capacity. Large, fully loaded vehicles take a lot of room and a lot of time. And so we'll be working with you on intersection improvements, things like that. With the new zoning bylaws coming up, we'll work with staff on that to make sure the broad permissions that were put in place in 2014 stay in the new zoning. The value of light industry, logistics, and manufacturing in Ottawa. What we lament sometimes is Ottawa's economic development opportunities often framed as tourism and high tech. Manufacturing is an economic development opportunity. Logistics is an economic development opportunity. And then we're really looking forward to providing input to the term of council priorities coming up. Last slide, I think. And there's some pictures of the corridor. Thanks very much.
I'll give you the motion.
Kelly, we'll read it and then we'll go to questions.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to both of you for your presentation today and for the work you do in our ward in terms of building economic development opportunities for people and helping things go around. So I have a motion here that I'll read into the record that will reflect some of the points that these gentlemen have made today. So whereas the Agricultural and Rural Affairs Committee is recommending to the City Council the approval of its terms of reference, and whereas ARAC has a mandate for ensuring that unique interests and requirements of the rural areas are taken into account and for making recommendations on issues and programs pertaining to rural communities. Whereas ARAC has a role in maintaining and strengthening the character of cities' rural areas, but should also have a role in protecting the rural areas. Whereas the terms of reference provide that ARAC is responsible for promoting servicing policies for the cities, hamlets, and villages, but is silent on the 4 designated rural employment areas identified in the official plan that are not within any hamlets or villages. And whereas there is an opportunity to clarify ARAC's role in these matters through the terms of reference. Therefore, be it resolved that the following additions be made to the specific responsibilities section of the agricultural, I think that's supposed to say Agricultural and Rural Affairs Committee's terms of reference. Specific responsibilities. Number 12, encourage the orderly development and management of growth that protects, maintains, and strengthens the character of the city's rural areas, including its hamlets and villages, and promotes the concentration of growth within established and planned settlements. Number 13, promote a cost-effective, environmentally sound, comprehensive servicing policy for the city's hamlets and villages and designated rural economic development areas. And be it further resolved that item number 3, under specific responsibilities, identify ways to promote an understanding of the rural and agricultural communities and their issues, be moved to the mandate section of the terms of reference. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly. Any question on the motion? Can we carry the motion?
Carried.
Thank you. Do we have any question for the delegation or anything before they leave?
I just want to take the opportunity to thank you guys again for the work you do and for the communication and openness that you've showed with my office since being elected and the help that you've provided and for what you do for our community. So I'm grateful that the other committee members have passed this motion and that we were able to be of assistance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kelly, and we appreciate your looking after your constituency. Councillor Liepert.
Thanks, and thanks, guys. You've been in front of council for years now, looking for the servicing for the corridor. Did you say you're getting ready to go out with a local improvement petition process?
Yes, in the past, one of the constraints to advocating for servicing has been the policy that the city does not extend into rural area. And we've worked to clarify for economic development. But in the recent urban boundary change, part of our development area, which is just south of the Queensway, moved from the former ward into the urban area. And so now we have the Reed Business Park is part of urban Ottawa. So urban Ottawa is permitted to have water and sewer. So that changed the equation in part of that business park. We have members like Ferrante Automotive, Waste Management is there, a firm called CalWave. Interestingly, water does penetrate that business park. Old agreement, one pipe comes in, and Darlene Wisniewski is the first business past the pipe. And it happens that there's a hydrant water filling station at that location. So CalWave makes unique products for alcohol. What do you call those?
Breathalyzers.
Breathalyzers, and they have water. And Darlene says, if we had water, we could move our manufacturing from Montreal to here. And she stands at her window and looks out and watches more water spill from the trucks. And so we have a number of members in the business park who have long advocated for water. So we expect that the local improvement process, if you've been through one, doesn't go quick. We will survey members. We will approach city staff for help in cost estimating and distribution to individual properties. We'll put the number in front of people. And the way we understand working with Gina Gill and formerly Dave Wright is if we can get 50% of people nodding their heads, the city will institute a formal process, and then that process requires 2/3 of the people to say, we're ready to pay. And if that happens, the city can move forward. So we're anxious. I'll just briefly say the city in the last official plan designated a whole whack of new employment land right across the street from this Reed Industrial Park, south of 417 between Carp Road and Palladium. A large new section, 45 hectares, I think. And so I'm sure the owners of that land are going to be moving forward and wondering how they're going to get water service too. And then finally, with the design of Carp Road south of 417 in the transportation budget, that's a great spot to decide how do we get water up. Water just has to come a little bit further up Carp Road.
Yep.
Well, when Carp Road is 4-laned, what a great time. So everything's, after 12 years, things are falling in place for Reed Park. For the area north, which is still rural, we will continue to advocate that it's an economic development zone, and like the Carp Airport, like Boundary Road, like the recent approval of a manufacturing facility on Borrisakane Road, extending into the rural area does provide for economic development.
Okay. Do you anticipate that for those areas that are now eligible or newly eligible, have you spoken with the owners, and are you anticipating a successful petition process?
Yeah. Like I said, Darlene Viscessi, the people who own Ferrante Automotive. Ferrante Automotive has one lot where their business is, and then they own 2 adjacent lots which are vacant. In the work we've done on water, it's interesting the response you get from owners. If you have a vacant lot, provision of water will provide a significant benefit. If I already have a well, no. The other unique thing about it is where the individual is in their business cycle. Some of the older businesses who have owned the property a long time and may be considering selling see the advantage of investing in water and the impact on their property value.
Yeah, they'll get that back.
And so there's an economic component. Oz Optics is in this area, one of Ottawa's oldest tech firms. Yeah, sure, Canada North is tech, but we've got Oz Optics. They had a ad in the paper the other day for a quantum physics person, in Carp Road, but they spend $700-800 a month bringing bottled water into the facility because the well water and groundwater in the area is poor. And so there's 100 different stories about why people will vote yes. There's local improvements are always the same. Those people have their checkbooks out. These people will always say no. And there's a big bunch in the middle, and that's who we're talking to, the people that want the information and will make a decision. So we're historically, there's been strong demand. Nobody's had to write a check yet. We'll see what happens when they have to write a check.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a political decision at that point. If you hit the number, you get the number, and everyone's got to play ball. So
yeah,
amazing. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Leeper. And I just want to thank both of you. I know you wear too many hats and you advocate for the resident in Ward 5 all the time in many other files, but I want to thank both of you, Roddy and Wayne, for coming here. And Roddy, I know that you also help a lot of BIA in the rural area, and I want to thank you for all the effort. Thank you very much, both of you, for being here. So we have that the Agricultural Rural Affairs Committee recommended council approve its term and of reference as outlined in this report as attached and as document 1 and as amended. Is that motion carried?
Carried.
Thank you. And we go back to 6.2. We have Carol in the gallery here, and she has a quick presentation. Thank you, Carol. And that will be concerning the revised work plan timelines.
Thank you, Chair. It's a pleasure to be here this morning to talk about the new zoning bylaw. The report before you deals with the work plan for the new zoning bylaw. The report recommends the addition of 6 months to the project timelines. The proposed timelines would bring the final draft of the zoning bylaw to council for approval in Q4 2025 instead of Q2 2025. And the revised timelines will comply with the Planning Act requirements that the new zoning provisions be enacted within 3 years of the approval of the official plan by the minister. So this slide compares the current and proposed timelines. So currently the first and second drafts of the bylaw are scheduled to be released in Q3 in each of 2023 and 2024, with the final draft brought in Q2 of 2025. And the proposed work plan would bring the first and second drafts in Q1 of 2020, 24 and 2025, with the final draft brought to council in Q4 of 2025. So the additional time in the work plan is needed in response to the 8-month delay of approval of the official plan and to respond to sweeping changes to the Ontario Provincial Planning Framework that I'm sure we're all aware are familiar with now. So staff are evaluating the implications of the 30 modifications made by the minister, as well as the complexities introduced through the changes through Bill 23. So Bill 23 made significant changes to planning legislation that are redirecting zoning staff away from work on the current zoning bylaw or the new zoning bylaw. And these changes include as of right permissions for up to 3 dwelling units and all residential parcels of land that have municipal water and sewer services. This change to the Planning Act has redirected our staff resources from their work on the current neighborhood zone provisions to recognize or develop provisions and make changes to the current zoning bylaw to address those 3-unit permissions that are really across the board in zones where currently we only have permissions for a detached dwelling or a semi-detached dwelling. This change to the Planning Act has also triggered the need to rework the draft residential zones prepared to date for the new zoning bylaw. So we have to go through and look at all of those provisions again and determine what the impacts are and how those zone provisions will need to be changed in response to accommodate these new permissions as part of that overall framework. So further changes through Bill 23. Bill 23 applied a new requirement that the city update current zoning and protected major transit station areas within 1 year of such areas being designated in the official plan. The city is required to ensure there is zoning in place to implement density requirements for these areas. And these density requirements are in table 3A of the official plan. And what it involves is staff going to each of the 26 PMTSAs involving doing an analysis of the existing zoning to determine if that zoning can deliver the densities that are shown in table 3A of the official plan. And then where we don't have zoning that is adequate, we have to figure out the specific zoning changes needed to provide those permissions. So this is extremely detailed work. It involves a lot by lot analysis and area wide calculations for the density potential of certain of the very specific zoning provisions in each of the 26 PMTSAs. This work is redirecting staff who are working on our hubs zoning to focus on that work. So that's a further wrinkle in our timelines. Bill 23 also implemented changes relating to site plan control, and those changes impacted the ability to use site plan control to affect the design of a building. So in the new zoning bylaw, we're going to have to consider carefully where it's necessary to apply new provisions to require certain minimal types of building articulation to address the quality of the design of buildings. And further still, I think the most significant change was that development that it affects 10 dwelling units or less is no longer subject to site plan control. And in that case, staff need to consider the functional site requirements of the lot in terms of the zoning provisions that we are developing for development that is 10 units and less. So it shifts some of the burden from site plan control to the new zoning bylaw. So staff are also having to consider that, and that is something new once again. So there will be opportunities for public engagement on the new zoning bylaw during 2023. We have discussion papers ready to launch in this quarter, so Q1 of 2023, on 7 key zoning issues, and they're up there on the screen for you. Surveys will be available for each of the discussion papers, and an as of heard report will be released in Q3 of 2023. I'll note that the release of discussion papers was delayed while we were waiting for approval of the official plan, as it was premature to consult with the public on zoning strategies for the official plan policies that were not yet in effect. So the neighborhood form and function paper will be a further opportunity for a public engagement relating to the zoning bylaw. That paper is scheduled to be brought to committee for information in Q2 of this year. The report will include a summary of various low-rise building forms that have been modeled on a variety of lot sizes in existing neighborhoods and the development standards used to produce such forms. And it will look at all of the functional site requirements that need to be considered through zoning and the zoning provisions to ensure that development actually is workable on the lot, and that the functional site requirements are addressed and can be addressed through the zoning. The report is intended to inform discussion on those performance standards for residential zones in the new zoning bylaws, and will cover matters such as setbacks, building height, parking, amenity area, and landscaping requirements for trees, which is a key consideration as infill development occurs in existing areas of the city, that is in the neighborhood designation. The neighborhood form and function report is being produced in consultation with staff who are working on the revisions to the urban design guidelines for low-rise infill housing. The guidelines are intended as a tool to help achieve design-related goals in the official plan concerning infill development in residential areas in the city, and those guidelines do need to be coordinated with the new zoning regime that staff are working on. So releasing the first draft in Q1 of 2024 will allow staff to respond to comments from the public on the discussion papers released in Q1 of this year, and to respond to comments on the first neighborhood form and function report in Q2 of this year. Sufficient time to consult with the public is essential to ensure transparency of process, as I'm sure you're all very concerned and acutely aware of. And this sufficient time is also needed to reduce the risk of appeals for new zoning provisions that inadvertently eliminate existing development rights. So the work that we're doing requires a citywide lot-by-lot review of properties. The new provisions must also be sensitive to the neighborhood context. And this was a commitment made by the city during the new official plan process. So while the zoning bylaw or the official plan really was at 10,000 feet, the zoning bylaw is right at ground level, and it requires an extremely detailed consideration of every property parcel in the city. So this is very demanding work. So to sum up, staff are simultaneously working on draft provisions for both the current and new zoning bylaw to respond to changes to planning legislation through Bill 23. I'd like to mention that the work plan to the current zoning bylaw 2008-250 was undertaken on timelines similar to what's proposed in the timelines before you right now. That the work on that bylaw began in 2008 and it continued through to it began in 2003. And it continued through to 2008. So it occurred over 5 years. The new zoning bylaw will implement an entirely new framework of transects and designations, as well as a revised growth management strategy that is very ambitious in terms of the intensification targets. And while zoning bylaw 2008 was an extremely complex process, so the one that I have referred to that occurred between 2003 and 2008, it was less ambitious in scope than the new zoning bylaw, as it was a harmonization of the zoning bylaws from the former municipalities. So to successfully achieve the goals and minimize appeals, all of the goals in the official plan and to minimize appeals, draft provisions are currently in a detailed stage of development. And as I said, a lot by lot consideration of over 300,000 parcels of land in the city is required over the next 3 years. So that sums up my presentation today, and I'm happy to take any questions from the committee.
Thank you very much, Carol, and I understand workload that you have, but I will see if the committee member have any question. So thank you for the present. So, sorry, Councillor Kitchell.
Yeah, just for the public meetings, are they going to be online only, or are you giving some consideration to in-person meetings as well?
Yes, we are giving consideration to in-person meetings. I understand that in the rural area, those work the best, and that is what is desired, and that is what is contemplated in our public engagement strategy.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Councillor,
Perhaps we might want to consider having like an east session, a south session, and a west session, just to make sure that we don't have people, driving out to Munster from Cumberland Village.
Absolutely. Yes, I know. I recall when we did the 2011 review of the secondary plans for the villages, we did many meetings, and I think I've been in every church basement and former municipal hall in the rural area. And so we'll attempt to provide a level of attention that's required for the rural area as part of our consultations.
thank you, Councillor Ruff. Thank you, Carol. I know that I'm happy that they asked those questions because it's also impact our communities. I know in the official plan, some of those 30 recommendations, lots of them in my communities, in my areas, there is 10 or 15 of them, but I understand the workload and we appreciate all the work you've been doing. And I think that's fair for you to ask for those timelines. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, that the Agriculture and Rural Affairs Committee recommend Council approve the proposed revisions to work plan timelines for the new rezoning bylaw as shown in document 1. Project work plan timelines and document 2, public engagement timelines to add an additional 6 months to the project timelines. Is that item carried?
Carried.
Thank you very much. Carried. Next, we have no in-camera items. And we have no notice of emotions. We have inquiry from Councillor Brown. Councillor Brown.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll read this out and I'll provide a little bit of context afterwards. The inquiry. Concerns have been raised with respect to whether new residential development is providing adequate parking in the village areas and whether parking regulations and parking management is sufficient in the rural context. Can staff advise on what options may be available to manage parking associated with new residential development in rural villages and what the potential impacts may be, including but not limited to amendments to the zoning bylaw, subdivision design, or other regulatory or parking management strategies suitable to a village context? Chair, I have the fortune of representing, I believe, the two fastest growing villages in the city of Ottawa, Manotick and Richmond. And I know parking in urban Ottawa has always been an issue as new developments come in and lot sizes are smaller and smaller, but that has a disproportionate impact on rural villages. We don't have accessible access to transit, and if we do, transit is only Monday to Friday, which means you still need a vehicle to get around on weekends, to shop, to take your children where they need to go, etc., just to live your rural life. Which is why I've put this inquiry forward. I think it's important that we remember as we develop our rural villages that cars are a way of life for us and there's no other way around that. And so we want to make sure as we continue to expand our villages that we take this into account. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. I understand this is also came after your experience with some of the work you've been doing in your village in Manotick, but well taken. So thank you very much for the inquiry. Any question for Dave? We're good. Thank you. No other business, seeing none. And we're gonna have number 11, we have open mics. And today we have 2 guests. We're gonna start number 1 with Mr. Greg McMillan. And he have a small presentation for us, and you have 10 minutes, 5 minutes, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, it depends. You're talking about wine, so the committee might want to give you more than 5. I hope you brought samples.
Ms. Crozier has an up-to-date presentation that I had sent yesterday. If I could have that up. So do I just ask to advance slide or can I do that? Okay. So I'm with the Ontario Artisan Wineries. My name's Craig McMillan. I'm the interim chair of that group. So I'm here today to seek support of the Agricultural Rural Affairs Committee and ultimately the City of Ottawa Council to eliminate the LCBO markup and wine levy imposed on the direct delivery of 100% Ontario non-VQA wine to a licensee. In simple terms, small non-VQA wineries in Eastern Ontario, if they want to sell wine to a local restaurant, are paying exorbitant fees of up to 47.5%, which I'll get into shortly. Next slide, please. So we're small wineries, less than 2,000 cases. We're a new association as of spring of 2022. We have members in Eastern Ontario mostly, but also Prince Edward County and Erie North Shore. And we're separate from Eastern Ontario wine producers who now represent meaderies, fruit wineries, and we're specifically dealing with grapes. Next slide. So this LCBO markup and wine levy, what's its impact? In our view, it has barred the sale of wine by local artisan wineries to local licensees because it's just too expensive. Yes, we can sell, but we all decline to because of the cost. It's limiting development of local agritourism and diversification. And in fact, it's punishing those of us who are growing 100% Ontario grapes. So a VQA winery is growing 100% Ontario grapes, and so are we, yet we're being treated differently. Sustainability of local artisan wineries is of concern, and the development of rural economies. It's not consistent with open for business and support local. And in essence, Eastern Ontario is on the cusp of potentially becoming a new wine region in Canada. But we need to deal with this issue to have that happen because frankly, anybody comes to me, I have to tell them there's this big impediment to you developing as a local winery. Next slide. So that's just a list. I won't go through it. There's in Eastern Ontario, 10 wineries that are impacted. In the City of Ottawa, there's 3. There's 2 in Navan and 1 in Richmond. Estimated 30 to 40 wineries across the province that are impacted as non-VQA wineries. Next slide. I won't go through that graphic. It's just available for you to kind of see the differential impact on the charges that are imposed because the next slide goes into this in more detail. So $20 bottle of wine. If I'm selling that, the selling price becomes $18.02. I won't go through the details of that, but there's a variety of charges that LCBO takes off and the value becomes $18. So a VQA winery, Vintners Quality Alliance Winery, is going to sell that bottle of wine and get 80% of the revenue. And if you go to column 2, you're going to see that non-VQA wineries get 52%. The key line item is number 2, where you see that the VQA winery is paying 14% in charges to the province, and we're paying 42%. So you can see it's $2.50, 56 cents versus $7.58. The federal charges and container deposit and excise tax, I'm not going to delve into that. For the most part, we all have to pay that. That's another story. But at the bottom, you see in red, 19.7% is the VQA wine charges, and we're at 47.5%, which actually goes up to over 50 if you include excise tax. You'll see in bold at the bottom, it says the difference is the LCBO markup of $6 and the wine levy. And next slide, please. And those numbers, by the way, aren't coming from the OAW. In your materials, you'll see an LCBO calculator. I just plug the numbers into this LCBO available calculator, and it pushes out those numbers and percentages. So just extrapolating a bit for the committee, on that, a case of that $20 bottle of wine, we're paying $60 more and receiving $60 less. On 1,000 cases, it's 60,000 less and 60,000 more. In 2,000 cases, it's $120,000 difference. Now, in fairness, we're not going to be selling 2,000 cases because we have to keep a certain percentage for our on-site winery store and farmers markets, but it gives you an idea of the scale that this causes us in charges. Next slide. I won't go over this slide. This essentially is just adding in that federal charge and the excise and the container deposit. Next slide. So where does the LCBO get the authority to impose the wine levy and the markup? Eastern Ontario wine producers pursued this issue for 2 or 3 years. I picked it up in 2021. I had been working for the federal government, retired, and was in a better position to pursue this issue. And I did manage to have a conversation or some meetings with the alcohol policy branch of the Ministry of Finance. And after about a year, I had them advise me that it was the Liquor Control Board of Ontario Act, Section 4, subsection 1, which gives this authority. It's the natural rights provision. So LCBO is like any other business. They can put a markup or levy on the products that they're selling, and they have a monopoly, of course, on the alcohol beverage in the province. Why is this important? This reveals that we're talking about a policy decision by the LCBO to impose these charges. It's not legislative. And for years, we were told this is a legislative change. You'll never get it. Don't even bother. But this was a pretty important change, recognizing policy decisions can be just as hard to change as legislative provisions. So ironically, if we eliminated the markup and wine levy, it would actually increase provincial revenue. Now, I'm not talking tens of millions of dollars here, because on 14 wineries, you'd probably range between 500,000 to 1.5 million, but on 30 to 40 wineries, you would probably be talking several million, because we would start selling to local licensees. All of the Ontario artisan wineries are small estate family owned. Their aspirations are only to serve a local agritourism model and community and work with local partners. We're not looking to get into the LCBO. Simply, we don't have the volume to meet their demands and other technical requirements. We're not looking to export our wine, and we're certainly not, the VQA is just not an option because it would cost us as much as we're paying in charges. Next slide, and I'll be wrapping it up shortly here. So we've adopted a multi-tiered advocacy approach. Grape growers came on board late last fall of Ontario. That was a big benefit for us. Previously, they were not engaging on this issue. Glengarry Federation of Agriculture supported myself and OAW going to the AGM of OFA. Large majority supported a resolution to eliminate these charges, and the board of directors adopted that in January of this year. And there's a letter in your materials that they recently sent to the Minister of Finance. Next slide. So Township of North Glengarry has been fairly critical for us. That's where I'm located, and there's a number of other wineries in SDG. They supported a delegation, which was accompanied by Stefan Sarazan. We met with the Ministry of Finance, the parliamentary assistant, and raised this issue. And so the minister is aware of the issue. MPP Stephen Lairdy out of Essex has supported us and is going to speak with the minister. Next slide. Steve Clark from Leeds Grenville has been very helpful. He's engaged and sent a letter to the minister directly asking that this policy change be made. I've met with Ms. Gamari for Carleton, and she's indicated in support, and we'll be writing a letter. Stephen Sarazan, I've mentioned already, will also be writing a letter, and MPP Todd Smith from Prince Edward County, Bay of Quint, has confirmed his support and will be speaking to the minister. Next slide. Nolan Quinn from SDG recently sent a letter and is supporting us. Township of Champlain has endorsed and passed a resolution. I met with United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry this week, and they adopted a resolution and circulated to the minister. Next slide. Township of South Glengarry the same day adopted a resolution. I had a Zoom call yesterday with United Counties of Leeds and Grenville. They've, and I probably won't get the language technically correct, supported the resolution, but have tabled it to be approved by the committee of the whole. I think it is. Ms. Catherine Kitts of this committee has been briefed. And so we've got a number of other meetings scheduled and other sector related organizations in coming days. Next slide. So we're new to this. I may be at the wrong place. I don't think so. I think this is an important agricultural rural issue. We're looking to get City Council to endorse a resolution. So we're looking for support on that, and that'd be circulated to the Minister of Finance and other relevant ministers, or we're in the hands of the committee. If you have any other advice, we're happy to take that from you.
Thank you.
Did I make my 10 minutes or 5 minutes?
Oh, we gave you more than
Okay, sorry.
than the time, but we appreciate you being here. I know that when you talk about wine, there's lots of interest, so we appreciate that. And it is part of our agriculture, so thank you. I know I have questions. I want to start with Councillor Kidd.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for being here. We had a really great discussion, and I'll cede the floor to my colleagues to ask questions since I already had some time with you, but I just wanted to let you know that I am working on bringing something forward, and I did still want you to present because I think it's best said in your words, and I think that we presented a lot of very valuable information, but that will be something that I'll be working with staff to bring forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kidd. Councillor Lulov.
I'm surprised to hear this is your first presentation. I don't think I've ever seen, I've never really liked the VQA policy with the LCBO. I don't think I've ever seen it so well articulated before. This is certainly something that I'd be pleased to support my colleague on, because you certainly did lay out, what a rent-seeking racket this is. This policy is created. So very, very pleased to support our local wineries. And if there's anything that I can do in the future to help you out, I'd be pleased to offer any assistance. Thanks.
Thank you very much. No, there's a number of issues, but we had to zero in on the most important one, and this is it. So I appreciate your comments.
Thank you. We have Councillor Kelly. All the councillors, they have a winery in their ward they're talking about. Go ahead.
Yeah, the one in my word's pretty new. It's going well. Thank you very much for your presentation. Those numbers were quite staggering to look at the differences there. I noticed you had mentioned you'd had a conversation with a number of provincial elected officials. Can you confirm whether or not that you've had those just with the governing party, or have there been discussions with MPPs from across party lines?
So our strategy has been to, and it just is coincidental, to pick townships and MPPs where we have impacted wineries. And at this point, it's only involved conservative candidate ridings or conservative members of parliament. The government has not made any commitment at this point. There's no promises. I haven't even had a yes, we're going to look at it. I have talked to Red Tape Reduction as well. I wrote to the minister and he put me on to one of his policy analysts. And I continue to speak with Alcohol Policy Branch, Ministry of Finance. But I think they're kind of waiting for direction or to see what's going to happen with that. No.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Leeper.
Thanks. And forgive me, what is the difference between a VQA and a non-VQA wine?
So Vintners Quality Alliance started out 35 years ago as a voluntary organization to help Niagara wineries form what's called an appellation system. What they discovered is they became better known for winemaking, and there's a whole story behind that, is that to get access to France and other countries, they had to have an appellation system, which means controls and regulations.
Okay, yeah.
So 25 years ago, that was put into legislation. There is quite a story behind why we can't get into VQA besides it not being our model or what we want to do, or it fits with our needs. Cold climate grapes are what most of our wineries grow. They weren't around 25, 35 years ago. Well, I shouldn't say that. They were around, but they're not as prolific as they are now because there's a recognition with climate change. Yes, we're going to warm up, but we're also going to have more severe winters. So you need to have grape varieties that can withstand. So my grapes are standing in the field. Minus 35 isn't going to bother them. So we're new. It's taking a while to sort of, create a beachhead, I guess, in the wine industry. But this is the up and coming area. I talked to the #1 grape breeder in North America. He was at my place 2 weeks ago and his phone's ringing off the wall because British Columbia and Nova Scotia got hammered by that polar vortex. And we do here. So a non-VQA winery, somebody who doesn't belong to the VQA, you have to pay a fee. There's other requirements to go with that. But at the end, I would say the only distinction is we don't have a tasting panel. We still have to send our stuff to a lab. We still have to, develop customers and convince them that we have a product they should buy. And Ontario's probably got the most regulated. BC has VQA, but they don't have tasting panels. Nova Scotia and Quebec don't have a VQA type model at all. So it's kind of typical alcohol policy. It's all over the place pursuant to the provincial interests.
Are most of those VQAs still locally owned or Canadian owned, or is there?
They would range
multinational
from
ownership?
small, which they describe as 20,000 cases. We do 2,000 cases. There's large corporations involved as well. The associations that, or groups that represent wineries are mostly dedicated to VQA. So we're new in the sense that we said, okay, we're not VQA and that's the interest we want to represent. Frankly, some of the officials in government acknowledged to me they didn't really understand the impact on the non-VQA wineries. Okay. But VQA is a powerful lobby in this province, and it's a bit of a David and Goliath. You're going to hear floodgates arguments. I don't think that's true. For years, about 5 years ago, there was a modernization where they allowed VQA wineries and fruit wineries to go to farmers markets, and we were expressly excluded from that. I have to give credit to the government. The pandemic hit. They did reach out to the Eastern Ontario wine producers and said, is there anything we can do to help? And they said, you can get us access to farmers markets. I would have put my hand up for restaurants, but of course, restaurants weren't open. So within weeks, I would say the province did change the rules and we now go to farmers markets. Up to that point, it had been, we'll flood the market. We can't. Even the 30 to 40 wineries probably would not produce as much wine as some of the bigger wineries. And the last piece, so I don't know where to run my time, is when you walk into the liquor store, just have a look around, and what you're going to see in the main aisle in the winery section is what's called international domestic blends. That's the bane of existence for VQA wineries because they only require 25% Ontario fruit in their wine. They're large corporations and they basically can flood the market. VQA wineries have to have 100% fruit from Ontario, as we do. And so that's a separate issue from us. We're so small that doesn't really concern me because I don't want to sell in the LCBO, but I think the VQA share is about 23% of the market.
Sounds Byzantine. Okay.
Yes. Leviathan.
Thanks, Chair. I'll look forward to learning more.
Thank you, Councillor Lipper. I'm sure you're very happy that you came to Iraq today. You learned a lot about wine. And no,
Just me, Chair.
Okay,
Thank you. And I just wanted to thank you for your delegation today. I've spoken to the owners of Jabalani, which is in my ward, and they're certainly in support of this. And I look forward to supporting Catherine Kitts as this comes forward.
Thank you.
thank you, Mr. McMillan, and we appreciate you being here this morning. I echo my colleague's concern. We will be working with our colleague to see how we can support you. It seems that your support is going to come from the Agricultural Affairs Committee across the board, and I saw all the delegation and what you've done in the past. I just small recommendation. I think I'm not sure if you did or you didn't, but reaching out to Minister of Agriculture is important. Minister Thompson.
Yes, we have reached out. So this is pre-election. There was no response. Basically, it was a lot of you go to AGCO or go to LCBO. It's a bit of a circle. So that's why we focused on the minister. But I take your comments. Thank you.
Thank you. And we appreciate you being here today. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next open mic guest will be Charlene Red and Megan and Gordon. Thank you both for coming this morning, and we appreciate your presence. Yeah, 5 minutes. We'll give you some more maybe because you're from rural
Thank you.
areas.
I won't actually take more time. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us. My name is Megan Ann Gordon. This is my colleague Charlene, and we're here on behalf of the Rural Ottawa Youth Mental Health Collective, which comprises of 12 multidisciplinary agencies who are deeply invested in the mental health of rural Ottawa youth. I've met with most of the city councillors here already quite recently, but I'm happy to be at ARAC today to talk about the collective and the gaps in services in rural Ottawa and to have it on the record at ARAC. So thank you. Our collective has observed that while mental health needs have increased in general and increased in complexity, accessible mental health supports in rural Ottawa have remained basically non-existent. As everyone at this committee knows, Ottawa is a unique municipality. It is one of the largest rural areas of any city in Canada, with 80% of the geographic area made up of rural, with less than 10% of the population living there. This makes it really difficult to compare to other rural areas because we're located so closely to a large urban center. Our 26 rural villages are not considered rural in the eyes of many funding bodies. However, the experience of rural youth living in rural Ottawa is very disconnected from the urban core, and it's causing them to fall through the cracks. Past attempts to address these issues have been met with a lack of understanding of the true barriers faced by rural youth. Access, distance, no public transportation, the necessary disclosure to caregivers in order to access any urban services, lack of understanding of what supports exist, and the general perception that urban supports are either too busy or do not simply do not reflect the unique needs of rural residents, to name just a few. Late last year, I spoke with a youth who lives in Fitzroy Harbor. They told me a heartbreaking story of the time that they tried to access a very specific mental health drop-in for LGBTQ2S+ youth. Fitzroy is a very small village, very far away from any services, and has no public transportation. The problem started with it being downtown on George Street in the market on a weeknight. But this youth actually had really supportive caregivers that were able to flex their work schedule and drive downtown in traffic to bring this youth. It took months to organize, and many failed attempts in the past. As the story goes, they got downtown and there was a sign on the door that said, "Program full, please come back next week." When I heard this story from this youth, they had not yet gone back. This story that I just told is not an isolated event. Social services and grassroots organizations in rural Ottawa have been hearing stories like this over and over for years. So in 2018, our collective was formed. We did extensive research and we learned exactly what needs to be done to make youth feel supported in their mental health. We talked to youth, their parents and caregivers, local politicians, educators, service providers, hockey coaches, scout leaders, basically anyone who would listen, all who were concerned about the lack of accessible, equitable, and inclusive mental health supports for this vulnerable group of youth. We defined the challenges. We developed a baseline of how many youth are currently feeling supported, and we investigated kinds of programs and services that our collective and the members can implement to help youth feel more supported. And then we set a goal. By 2024, 80% of rural Ottawa youth will feel that they're getting the mental health support that they need or know where to go if and when they need that support. We learned the absolute best way for youth to access mental health services is within their own community. We then created strategies to achieve this goal, and we've begun implementing programs and advocating for services to reach rural youth. We are part of a preventative strategy. We want to support youth, rural youth, so that they don't reach the crisis stage, and they certainly don't end up relying on first responder resources in emergency services care or in hospital. Youth programming and youth mental health supports will enable youth to become mentally well and supported adults. We've talked in depth to rural residents and service providers about how to support rural youth, and we know exactly what it will take. We're doing a really good job and we're only getting better, which brings me here today. Making sure that rural youth are supported in their mental health requires government investment. We're on our last leg of funding from the Laidlaw Foundation, and in order to continue our work, we need to secure sustainable funding beyond 2023. Our collective and/or our member organizations need consistent annual funding of at least $500,000 dedicated directly to rural Ottawa in order to increase youth mental health supports so we can continue to connect with, support youth and set them up for future success. Thank you. In under 5 minutes.
Tida, thank you very much, Megan. Any questions for Megan?
I do, Chair.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Charlene, for coming out today. I know we've spoken about this issue, and I'm happy that you've been able to speak with my colleagues as well, because this is one of those not emerging issues, but one of those issues that's certainly coming to the forefront now. And something that I like to say, and Megan, you referenced it briefly in your comments about the vastness of the city of Ottawa. Every single urban and suburban ward fits in my ward, and I still have space left to spare. So I hope that provides a bit of context for those who are joining us today virtually and then again in this room, just to those challenges about distance and getting somewhere. I know when you have to tell a youth that they need to get down to George Street in the market to get services, it's hard enough to get from one village to the next in rural Ottawa. And if you don't have a car or you can't rely on someone to get you there, then there's no access. And so I think this is very important that we look at this in a holistic way. I'm hoping for the benefit of this committee, you can talk about the funding portion that you've mentioned to me in our few conversations and how we may be able to assist you in changing that dynamic.
Yeah, there's a few things. So our funding through Laidlaw Foundation, it's a 5-year funding cycle. We are on year 5. We always knew that we were getting to the end of our funding through Laidlaw. We've been successful every year that we've applied. So we are in a position to be looking for sustainable funding, and that's for the work of the collective, but also our agencies within the collective. So there are 12 agencies that are represented within the collective, and they have expertise. They have mental health expertise that they can put into rural communities. They just don't have the funding to make that possible right now. So we're looking anywhere that we can look. There is provincial funding for rural communities that we don't have access to. We can't apply for it because we're not rural enough, I guess, because we're part of the city of Ottawa. And so we are working towards that. Having those conversations, we're asking basically anyone that is able to figure out a way that we can get more programs and services within rural Ottawa. Does that answer your question or is there something I'm forgetting?
No, I think that's good. And I appreciate your statement about we can't access it because we are part of the city of Ottawa. And,
Mhm.
you know, that really, I know I talk about that often. My colleagues have heard me talk about that. It's very challenging because we have more in common with the small rural communities outside of the city of Ottawa than we really do within the city of Ottawa. And because of our designation as the city, we can't access those. So working with our provincial partners, I think it's going to be imperative going forward because we need to change that designation. I think that's the biggest goalpost shift we could do to ensure that our rural communities can access that funding. So.
Yeah, and that's a really important point that you brought up. So I live in Richmond and youth in Richmond often feel more comfortable accessing services in say Kentville or Carleton Place because those services are designed for rural residents as opposed to being told to go to George Street or being told to go to Smythe Road or wherever services are. But often it's based on your postal code. So when you go and they type in K0A, they say, I'm really sorry, you can access these great services that are available in the city of Ottawa. But then, yes, we face all of the barriers that I've spoken to about. So yeah, it's definitely very limiting and it leaves youth feeling demoralized and unsupported. And often they just don't pursue the next step.
No,
Thank you.
well, thank you very much for coming and Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I don't want to repeat the questions, but I know that you work very closely collectively with Osgood Youth Association, and I'm well aware of the program, and it's been working well in our community, and I'm hoping that expand. But the challenges, I totally agree with you, and I understand that we've been working on the last 8 years actually with our provincial partner before even the Conservative Party. We work with on many other infrastructure grant or anything. We were always excluded when we have a grant from expansion of natural gas or anything like that. So we've been very successful in the past, and I don't see why not this committee will work together collectively to making sure when the grant comes specifically from the province to make sure that we have a category in it and specification that rural resident in Ottawa, because you're right, 80% of Ottawa is rural. And we should be qualified for those grants. So thank you very much for your advocacy, and we'll work together collectively to help you. And we'll reach out to our MPP also to make sure to talk to Goldie. I know you've been in touch with her before, but we'll re-echo those to making sure that she hears us very well, and we'll work together collectively to be successful. So
That's great.
Thank you. Okay, so thank you very much. We can adjourn, but before I adjourn, I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank city staff from all departments, from the finance, from policies. I know also our legal staff that have been here, set up this beautiful setting here for us to be able to have face-to-face and to have in-person meeting. And I also thank all the participants that they join us on Zoom. So thank you very much. I hope you're going to have a great weekend. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion that.
Thank you. Okay, we'll adjourn. Our next meeting will be April 26th, and we're going to go back to our regular Thursday meeting. So thank you very much.